Hey YouTube, in this video I have a few more Pyraminx intuitive L4E example solves. So before we get started, I'm going to give some background on me as a Pyraminxer. So I currently average about 3.2 seconds globally on Pyraminx, and I've been doing it for about 4 years now. I have an official 2.78 average, which at the time was 7th in the world, and now is ranked 12th in the world. So I use the method intuitive L4E, which is a V first method. And if you don't know how this method works, this video probably isn't for you, but it is an advanced method, and basically the way it works is you make a V, which is an entire layer except for one piece, and then you solve everything else with an algorithm, or basically intuitively most of the time. So I'm going to get right into the first solve, and scrambles will be up on screen if you want to follow along. Alright, so for this solve, the first thing I see is this huge bar right here. So this is a very good thing because we have an edge solved already, which is always good. So that means I'm probably going to look at the blue side or the red side. And a big part of L4E is block building, so usually I try to block build a V instead of just solving centers then edges. I'll do them both at the same time. So looking at blue, there's not really any way to solve the blue-yellow edge or the blue-green edge super intuitively. I guess you could sort of do this to solve that blue-yellow edge, and that kind of also solve the blue-green edge. But I don't know, I probably wouldn't see that realistically, and I would look on red instead. And here I would see this red-yellow edge. So we already have this bar here, and before I solve this red center, I would actually bring this edge here and move it over like that. And I'd probably solve the tips sometime around there too. So before I even do that, I would look ahead to the L4E case also, because I see that this red-green edge is going to be in place, but flipped. And also I can tell that when we bring this edge up, to solve it and bring this over, we're going to have a bar here. So I can actually see that right away, that this yellow is going to end up here to make a bar. So I'm going to start my L4E with a sledgehammer. So I'd probably finger trick it kind of like this. And then once we have the V, I would do a sledgehammer to solve this piece. When you do sledgehammers with L4E, I sledge starting on the opposite side of where the bar is, so that'll solve this piece. And then do a U, and then last 3 edges is just that case. And then you solve it. Alright, now next scramble. So for this scramble, the first thing I noticed was this green and yellow block. So it's not exactly a bar like we had last time, but it is a block, and this edge is solved. So I'm either going to solve green or yellow. So first I actually did look at yellow when I was just looking at this. And when I was looking for the other yellow edges, here's the yellow-red edge. It's not particularly easy to solve that. It would theoretically be possible to sort of solve it like that, and then bring this edge back up, but it's really not ideal. And it's too many moves, really. I wouldn't want to do that. So then I look at green to see if there's something better, and there is. So what I see here is the green-red edge is, if I bring it down here, like that, it's going to be really easy to pair it up and put it in its spot. So this edge belongs here, which optimally is 2 moves like that. And those 2 moves just so happen to solve this center and this center as well. So I would probably finger trick it like this. Note that I solved a tip there, solve this edge, and then do that sort of thing. So now L4E, there are 2 things I might do here. I would probably, in this case, since we have a bar already, I would probably do a sledge to solve this, and then U prime, and solve it like that. But had I not done that, the only other option would be to solve this piece first, by bringing it up like this, and then solving L3E. Either one of those L4E Alex is fine. I probably would have done the sledge one just because of how it was set up, but, you know, they both work. Alright, next scramble. Alright, so this case is very interesting. I would probably do a really weird solution here. So, this is actually a really good example solve because it's something that you don't get often, but it's kind of a cool solution. So, there aren't any blocks here at all. But I was looking at red, and I noticed that if I held it like this and solved the centers, then I would actually end up being a sledgehammer away from solving the layer. And I'm really not that good at knowing how sledgehammers affect all 3 pieces. Basically, a sledgehammer is R prime, L, R, L prime, and it affects these 3 pieces. And a lefty sledgehammer is L, R prime, L prime, R, and it also affects these 3 pieces. I'm not that good at recognizing how it affects it, but I can tell that it's going to solve at least a couple pieces, and I can also look ahead to the last layer, and I can tell that it's a regular layer by layer case, because these 3 edges this edge will be up here, and the 3 edges are going to need to cycle around, which is just an LBL case. So I would probably do this, sledge to solve the layer, rotate, and then do layer by layer. So really weird solution, but pretty fun, and it definitely works. Alright, so next scramble. First thing I see on this scramble is this big bar here. And it's the same kind of bar as we had in the first solve, because both centers around this edge are solved, so that's a very good thing. So that means worst case we'll at least have one edge in after we finish our centers. There's not really any efficient way to solve another edge in a block building manner, seeing as all the centers are solved. So I would either go for yellow or green on this one, because that's where the big bar is. Yeah, so yellow might be slightly better on this one. It's really easy to look ahead here. So what I would actually do is I would solve this piece just with the sledgehammer by putting this down here. And then I can actually look ahead into L4E, and I see that this piece, which belongs up here, since a sledgehammer doesn't affect centers at all, to get this piece up here, I'll need to do a U, and then I can insert it. So I would start by solving tips and that edge with the sledgehammer, rotate, and then I know I'm going to have to do a U to insert this edge in the back. And then it's just down to last 3 edges, which is that case, and then a U. Alright, so moving on to the next scramble. Okay, so this block is really obvious here, so I would probably end up going for green or red just because of this. So on the green side, you could actually block build a V pretty easily. You could bring this edge down to solve it, then bring this one up, and then you would have your V almost done. But when I was looking at this before, that wasn't the first thing I saw. The first thing that I actually saw was the red side. And on the red side, it's actually quite easy to force an L4E case. So the way I like to do that is I see this piece here that I'm going to be able to solve really easily, and I also see that I can solve this center in one move. So I would look ahead in inspection and see that this piece is going to end up over here, and the yellow on this blue and yellow edge is going to be right here, which is solved. So that edge is going to be one of my last layer edges, and it's going to be solved, which is very useful for L4E. So I would probably finger trick it like this. I'd do the tip, and then that. And then as you can see, this edge is in fact solved. I would probably just insert that red-blue edge, and then finish with an L4E case in 4 moves, and then a U. A lot of times people don't really focus on that with V-first methods. You can force L4E cases pretty frequently if you do things like that. So it's not always about building a V. Sometimes it's just about solving as many pieces as you possibly can. So that's what I did there. So this scramble really doesn't have that many great solutions, but what I would probably end up doing is just going for green, and I see this green-red edge can be solved between the green and red centers in just one move like that. And honestly, I don't think it would really be worthwhile to block build anything more. Anything else I would do would just be really inefficient, and it would just be better to insert the edges normally. So I would probably do this to solve that edge, and bring that block up. And it looks like we have a V, but this one's not solved. So I would rotate, probably solve like that, this edge, just by inserting it. And then we have an L4E case, which is actually really nice. So first I'll show you how it works slowly, and then I'll show you the finger trick I use for it. So first you solve this piece in the back. So you bring it up so it matches these 2 centers. Put it in the back, bring it back down. Then you have technically the worst L4E case, but it's still pretty finger tricky. So you can sledge, and then insert, and then a U. So I'd actually finger trick it like this. So it's kind of got some double moves in there, and technically that's inefficient, but I don't know, I feel like it's the best way to finger trick it, because like for this case, doing an R2 is a lot better in my opinion than just canceling into an R prime, because then your wrist gets in a really weird position, and it's just super awkward. So I think a lot of times on Pyraminx, R2s and things like that are just better to finger trick. Alright, so we'll do one more. So this scramble is pretty interesting. So I would probably go for yellow on this one. And the reason I say that is because you can solve this yellow-green edge just by moving it up like that, and then it's in its position. And you can solve this yellow-red edge in one move as well. Unfortunately, solving that edge will mess up the yellow-green edge. It won't be in its same position. So I would solve the yellow-green first, then the yellow-red. Then I would turn the top layer like that to move it out of the way, this big block out of the way. Then we can bring this center down and solve it, solve this tip, and solve the top. Now we have a V. And this is just a 2 flip. So that's kind of a weird one to finger trick, so I'll just show you how I would actually finger trick that in a solve. Kind of like this, and then rotate and solve that. So it's not the easiest solve to finger trick, but it definitely works, and the solution's pretty efficient, so sometimes you need to compromise some nice finger tricks just to get some good efficiency, and that's kind of, you know, up to your discretion, whatever works best for you to get fast times. So hopefully this video helped you out a bunch. If it did, let me know in the comments, and if you have any suggestions for future walkthrough solves, anything you want me to explain better, or any questions in general, you can leave them in the comments below. But first check the description, because I might be updating that if I get any like frequently asked questions or anything like that. But yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching, hope you learned something new, and I'll see you on my next video.